Tonight on CFTK-TV News, a northern BC couple is going on a big walk for a cause that's very important to them. Terrace will be getting a newer sport introduced later this week, and a local campfire ban is set to be lifted very soon.
Northwest BC's only television news team. We are CFTK-TV News.
Good evening, I'm Cale Baslett, and here's what's making the news of the Northwest and beyond for today. A northern BC couple is walking across the province to raise awareness about the number of children placed in the care of the ministry and the effects that come from that. CFTK-TV's Jaylene Matthews has the story.
Supporters gathered outside Terrace's Ministry of Children and Family Development offices to support a couple who are fighting for access to their children. Kimberly Joseph remembers when she was taken from her mother. She says her mom went to social services with her 3 children to ask for help, as she no longer had a place to live. That social worker then took Kimberly and her siblings, the youngest, a 2-month-old baby, away from their mother and put them in foster care. Kimberly was 5 and remained in care until she aged out. She says she could speak carrier when she first went into care.
I was speaking carrier, and they tore it away from me, saying they couldn't understand me.
Kimberly sees the problem with taking children from their parents, and unfortunately, her own children have now been taken from her as well.
And as kids, we don't understand what supervised visits mean. We really don't. We don't understand why we can only see our mom for a few hours and then walk away. Because my children are doing it right now. They're crying for us. They want to come home, and I remember how that was. I remember looking at my mom, and she would be bawling her eyes out, sitting there while they're talking to us, telling us they're going to bring us to McDonald's. That's how they got us. They said they're going to bring us to McDonald's as a family. We're going to go eat because it was their treat. So us kids, we jumped in. And my mom was sitting there. They jumped in and drove away without her. How does that affect a child when you do that to them?
Kimberly and Jordan have walked from Prince Rupert to Terrace to raise awareness about the number of children in care, especially Indigenous children.
I don't understand how people can take away kids and not feel that. How can you not hear their screaming and their crying for their families? How? I understand that some families really do need more support than others, but shouldn't you be helping that instead of taking the children? Shouldn't people be going to the families that need the support? Because you shouldn't be taking kids away. It really, really does affect them mentally.
Today they head out of Terrace and are bound for Prince George. The journey can be followed on Facebook, and they are accepting donations. Kimberly says that once they make it to Prince George, as long as the wildfires allow it, they'll continue the awareness walk all the way to Vancouver. For CFTK-TV News, I'm Jaylene Matthews.
With Riverboat Week on the horizon, a newer sport to the city of Terrace will be making its official introduction to the public this week. Here's CFTK's Damian Smith with more.
Growing up here in Canada, it wasn't a sport that was introduced to us in school, so I've just been learning about this for the past year, and it is contagious.
That sport she is talking about is cricket, and those who desire playing now have the option to do so at the Thornhill Agricultural Grounds. The grand opening of the pitch is set to take place at 1 p.m. on August 10th, and leaders of the group are ecstatic.
Riverboat Day, man. Every man and his dog in Terrace loves Riverboat Day. It's a great sense of celebration where everyone showcases their activity, their business, their passion. Yeah, we get to showcase and highlight our passion, which is cricket.
The opening is going to be very emotional for some. A lot of it is because this is a sport that they grew up with.
It wasn't always easy, however. In fact, it's been an over 5-year process. Players would play in a parking lot, playing through injuries for the love of the game.
They've been at it for, as I say, a long time, and their vision was exactly what regional district has been able to provide us, and that is the cricket pitch.
And so this has really been the past couple of weeks. Only recently have we had the joy and privilege to be able to be playing on this pitch, which you'll probably see behind me. Is it the best in the world? For us it is.
In fact, days right before the grand opening, the team will be headed to Prince George for their first ever tournament, hoping to make their mark in BC cricket.
Win or lose, I just want them to give their 100%, and the outcome's always the outcome.
And I jokingly say to them, people aren't really going to ask, about what sort of a cricketer you are. They're going to say, what sort of guys are these that came from this region, So they're representing the Northwest, playing in Prince George, new boys on the block. Are we going to have fun? Man, we're going to have fun. So much fun.
Really, there's going to be teams from Kelowna, from Surrey. We know the competition is stiff. But you know what? These guys have it in them.
It's our first involvement in a tournament. We are super excited. Are the guys prepared? I don't know if the guys could be more prepared than what they are now. They are ready.
Their growth won't stop there, however, as the organization looks to expand to all people.
Introducing cricket into this region doesn't just cater for the guys. At the moment, it's really a male-dominated sport. We're hoping to change that.
They're really encouraging youth and women to really come out and play. So we really want to make sure that we have that platform as well.
From Terrace, I'm Damian Smith.
The BC Coroner Service says the rate of deaths from toxic drugs in the province is down 9% in the first half of this year compared with 2023. Still, about 6 people continue to die from toxic illicit drugs each day in BC, with 181 deaths reported in May and 185 deaths in June. The coroner says at least 1,158 people have died so far this year, and nearly 15,000 people have died from toxic illicit drugs since BC officials declared the overdose crisis a public health emergency back in April of 2016. In response to the latest death toll, Addictions Minister Jennifer Whiteside says everyone who died is irreplaceable to their loved ones, and the losses reinforce the need to protect people from the risk of toxic drugs. Starting at noon tomorrow, the Category 1 campfire open burning prohibition is set to be rescinded in both the Northwest as well as the Prince George Fire Centre in BC. The main reason for the prohibition being lifted is because local fire danger ratings in the areas have been dropping thanks to both rain and cooler temperatures being present as of late too. But the ban on Category 2 and 3 open fires is still in place, and with fire danger ratings being constantly monitored by the BC Wildfire Service, the Category 1 ban could end up being put back into place if conditions end up heating up again. Those wanting more information on the lifting of the ban can find it at the BC Wildfire Service's website. Coming up next are big accusations against a high-profile Vancouver police officer. Welcome back. Cooler weather and rain has helped in the battle against wildfires in BC, but we're not out of the woods by any means. The province is bracing for hot and dry conditions to return. CTV's Michelle Bernoro has more.
Despite vast areas of smoke and burning forests, there are signs of hope in BC's wildfire battle.
Over the last 7 days, 286 fires have been called out, 44 fires in the last 24 hours alone.
The weather, a key factor.
Many parts of the province are experiencing cool and even wet weather, helping BC crews make headway in knocking down some of these fires.
Still, out-of-control fires continue to threaten communities, forcing people from their homes, particularly in the central Kootenay region.
There are approximately 1,350 people under an evacuation order, primarily in the central Kootenay region.
But good news for the people of Silverton, where an evacuation order has just been downgraded to an alert. Meanwhile, near Spence's Bridge, the Shetland Creek wildfire now sits at more than 24,000 hectares and is still not under control. BC's reprieve from the heat is expected to be short-lived.
Right now, we're forecasting for sort of that Kamloops Fire Center, Southeast Fire Center. We're going to see a return to the low to mid 30-degree temperatures, which, as we've seen in BC, that's very challenging firefighting conditions for our crews.
Challenging conditions crews are trying to prepare for. Michelle Bernoro, CTV News.
We're hearing from the woman leveling bombshell allegations against a high-profile Vancouver police officer. Sergeant Steve Addison is being sued by his former boss as he is accused of bullying, harassment, and discrimination. As CTV's Penny Davlos reports, the plaintiff claims VPD brass wouldn't do anything about it, and a police watchdog is now involved.
Vancouver Police Headquarters are where the top cops in the city work with a handful of civilian staff holding senior positions. One of them was Sharmini D., Director of Public Affairs, who went to Chief Constable Adam Palmer with serious allegations.
I said, I don't feel safe. There are women on my team who don't feel safe. And he asked me to just be patient.
Dee has now filed a civil suit alleging her subordinate VPD spokesman Sergeant Steve Addison fostered an increasingly toxic workplace, harassing, bullying, and discriminating against the longtime employee.
I asked him, is it difficult for you to report to a female director? And it got really bad. He slammed his book where I was sitting. And he came right into my face. I absolutely felt threatened. And I'm not easily threatened. And I looked to see if his gun was in his holster. And that's kind of where my brain went.
Addison is one of the most familiar officers with the force, speaking on behalf of the VPD for several years.
The focus of our investigation now is to continue to seek information.
CTV News has learned that Vancouver police conducted an internal review, essentially investigating one of their own. A senior officer concluded Dee's allegations were unsubstantiated, but the Office of the Police Complaints Commissioner is now reviewing that finding to see if further investigation is warranted.
It's not just one person. It's the leadership. It's the silence, how they've kept quiet. When I've asked over and over, not just to help me, I asked when I left, please protect my team. And nothing's been done.
Vancouver police say it would be inappropriate to comment on personnel or court matters. CTV News has reached out to Addison directly, but he's not yet responded. An experienced public relations professional, Dee knows what it means to go public with such serious claims and a civil suit.
Silence always helps the tormentor, never the tormented. The easiest thing would have been to just leave. I've been there long enough to know the culture. But what if someone new comes in, sits in that seat, and something bad happens, something terrible? I too will be responsible for that.
None of the allegations have been proven in court. Penny Davlos, CTV News, West Vancouver.
Turning to tonight's weather, the North Coast will be home to a chance of showers with a low at 12 degrees. The Terrace-Kitimat area should see a few showers while also having a low at 12 degrees. And the Bulkley Valley and Lakes District is likely to only deal with a few clouds as their own low is at 3 degrees. On the North Coast, their next week or so will contain pretty much all sun before a cloudy day towards the end, and the high will shift from 19 to 20 degrees. In the Terrace-Kitimat area, the week for them will only include the odd mixed sunny and cloudy day to go with their sun days, plus the high should bounce between 20 and 30 degrees. And in the Bulkley Valley and Lakes districts, the upcoming week will consist of only sunny days with maybe a bit of cloud at the end as the high moves from 22 to 30 degrees. Checking out the highways now, visit Drive BC for the latest and up-to-date conditions, and as always, drive safe out there. On Highway 16, there is a forest fire, utility work, bridge maintenance, electrical maintenance, construction work, and shoulder maintenance. Highway 118 has some bridge maintenance. Highway 37 has some roadside brushing and maintenance. 37A has maintenance and road maintenance too, and some more road maintenance and crack sealing on the Nishka Highway. And this is what the roads were looking like this afternoon around the region from the view of the province's highway cams. Still to come, Israel responded to a recent attack against them, and it wasn't with words. Welcome back. A pair of BC First Nations have filed lawsuits against the federal government and fish farm companies in an attempt to overturn a decision allowing the farms to operate in BC waters for at least 5 more years. CTV's Ben Milger has more on the lawsuit and the industry's response.
Flanked by singers and drummers, chiefs from Numgis and Kwikwa-Sutunuk Hakwumish First Nations shared the importance of wild salmon to their people.
It's fundamental to our survival and our rights and title. Absolutely fundamental. Our responsibility as chiefs is the protection of wild salmon.
During the 2019 election campaign, Prime Minister Justin Trudeau promised to phase out open net pen farms by 2025. But last month, the feds threw the industry a lifeline, allowing 14 farms to continue operating in BC waters until 2029. The 2 First Nations have filed suit against the feds and a pair of fish farming companies. Concerned about the health impacts of fish farms on wild salmon, the First Nations claim the government did not adequately consult with them before extending the licenses.
The Crown has some obligations that it has conveniently chosen to forget. A consultation cannot be a coffee, a donut, and gee, I'm glad you came, but here's what we're going to do anyway. Those days are long gone.
Grieg Seafood and Mowi Canada, the multinational companies that own the farms, say they operate with the consent of the First Nations whose waters the farms are in. These agreements are founded upon recognizing First Nations' right to exercise jurisdiction over the land, resources, and waters within their territories, Mowi said in a statement. The lawsuits seek to overturn the decision to extend the licenses.
The fight for our wild salmon survival isn't going to stop at the decision of the courts.
The federal government says the only new licenses it will issue going forward will be for closed containment aquaculture systems. Ben Milger, CTV News, Vancouver.
Israel has carried out an airstrike in Beirut in an area considered a stronghold for Iran-backed Hezbollah. The strike by Israel targeted a senior Hezbollah commander in retaliation for an attack on the Golan Heights last week that killed 12 children who were playing on a soccer field. ABC's Marcus Moore reports from Beirut.
Tonight, an Israeli airstrike rocking southern Beirut. The IDF claims it killed Hezbollah's most senior military commander, although that has not been independently confirmed. At least 2 people reportedly died in the attack and another 20 were injured. The Israelis say Hezbollah's Fa'ud Shukur was heavily involved in the rocket attack that killed 12 children and teenagers at a soccer field in the Israeli-occupied Golan Heights on Saturday. Hezbollah has denied responsibility, even though it has been firing rockets into Israel for 10 months in solidarity with Hamas militants in Gaza. Israeli leader Benjamin Netanyahu visited the town and soccer field where the children were killed and promised the response would be, quote, severe. Sources tell ABC News the U.S. was given advance notice of today's airstrike. And on the campaign trail, Vice President Kamala Harris offered her support of Israel's actions.
It has the right to defend itself against a terrorist organization, which is exactly what Hezbollah is. But all of that being said, we still must work on a diplomatic solution to end these attacks, and we will continue to do that work.
And now we turn our attention to the stock markets. The Canadian dollar is up 22/10 cents. The price of gold is up $21.10. Oil is up $3.18. Natural gas is down 9 cents. Aluminum is down $26. In Toronto, the TSX is up 286.14 points. The Venture Index is up 9.65. In New York, the Dow Jones is up 99.46. And NASDAQ is up 451.98. Still ahead is more news on how Canada's Summer Olympics are going. Welcome back. Canada went for gold in the match between our women's rugby sevens team and New Zealand's, but they came away with silver, which is still quite the outcome after pulling off a major upset against the powerhouse Australians. CTV's Scott Hurst is on all things that have gone well for Canada at the Olympics.
An historic feat for the Canadian women's rugby sevens team, silver medalist at Paris 2024. The first time ever the team has competed for gold, falling to the reigning Olympic champion, New Zealand. They put a scare into the Kiwis, however, with Canada leading in the first half, but New Zealand held on for gold. Lots of attention on the Canadian women's artistic gymnastics team, finishing in 5th place. It's the first time Canadian women have made it to the final round since London 2012. But it was the powerhouse Americans led by superstar Simone Biles who took the top spot. The first gold for Biles at these Olympics, of course, looking to rebound after pulling out of certain events during the previous Olympic Games to focus on her mental health. The Canadian men's basketball team on the Olympic stage for the first time in 24 years, proving they belong under the bright lights of international competition, beating Australia to go 2-0 so far. It's not official just yet, but they're in the driver's seat to qualify for the quarterfinals. On the clay court of Roland Garros, Felix Auger-Aliassime is moving on to the round of 16 with a dominating win over his German opponent, while fellow teammate Leylah Fernandez lost to Angelique Kerber, eliminated in the 3rd round of Paris 2024.
Emergency Management Minister Bowen Moss said BC is still encouraging people to visit, but they should prepare by looking up the regional forecast, road conditions, highway closures, and evacuation alerts. Moss says people traveling by car should have an emergency kit with sufficient water, food, extra clothing, and emergency gear. Meanwhile, the gold rush town of Barkerville is reopening on Friday after a wildfire forced an evacuation in the region earlier this month. A statement from the town says programs will resume, though guests may see elevated smoke, and its campgrounds, cottages, and guest houses will remain closed until about mid-August. That is all of our news for now. From all of us here at CFTK-TV News, I'm Cale Maslin, and thank you for watching. We'll see you next time.